Good morning. It's time to get in touch. In Touch is a public affairs show dedicated to improving the lives of Susquehanna Valley residents. I'm Freddi Hammer, news director at Backyard Broadcasting.
There's an invasive species heading around Pennsylvania that's on its way to Lycoming County. And today, we're going to be speaking with some experts in the entomology department at Penn State about the spotted lanternfly and how we're going to learn how to stop this invader to our area. This morning, looking forward to finding out a little bit more about these spotted lanternflies and what we need to do here in our area before they get here so we can stop the spread of this invasive species. On the phone with Heather Leach, Extension Associate in the Department of Etymology. Good morning to you, Heather.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
I want to know about the Department of Entomology. How long have you been interested in bugs?
Well, my interest in bugs goes back all the way back to my childhood. I was one of those maybe kind of strange kids that I was always playing outside and looking at bugs and just always very fascinated with kind of the natural world around me, I guess.
Well, I think it's really fascinating, too. I do love science. And when I was in Lancaster County last year, I noticed along my father's apartment building this weird fly that I had never seen before. It had spots on its wings, and I thought, I wonder if that's the spotted lanternfly with a red body. Tell us a little bit about this invasive species.
Yeah, for sure. So spotted lanternfly, it's one of our newest invasive insects that we have here in the United States and specifically in the Northeast, though it is kind of continuing to spread. And the one, kind of nice thing about spotted lanternfly, at least from my perspective when I'm trying to teach people about what it looks like and why to care about it, is that it's really easy to detect. It's really obvious. It looks very peculiar, and it behaves in kind of a strange way as well. So depending on what time, you're looking for spotted lanternfly, they can look a little bit different based on what life stage they're in. So right now, during the winter phase, they're overwintering as egg masses. And so those look kind of indistinct, nondescript, a little bit tricky to see. They sort of look like a splash of mud on a tree or on a picnic table even, or on stones and things like that. And that's how we think it got here in the first place.
Just being deposited as an egg mass.
Yes, as an egg mass.
Okay.
So again, they don't look very descriptive. It literally looks like a splash of mud on something. And so I don't think that people, when we're inspecting goods and materials that come into the United States, that's not something that's really going to stand out as a potentially, devastating invasive insect. So it's easy to miss. And so that's how we believe it got in the United States in the first place.
So something like the Philadelphia ports or New York City, something had a lanternfly egg mass on it and came to this area to spread. Ew.
Yeah, exactly. And unbeknownst to us, and really, it came here, or at least we found the population in 2014, but based on, kind of the number of egg masses that were present and how big the population already was in that kind of small area, we think it probably was actually introduced maybe 2011 or 2012, and we just didn't notice it for a few years because, again, it was in a small area. And it was kind of allowed to grow for a couple of years before anyone said, hey, what is that weird-looking bug over there?
Yeah, it's almost beautiful with the red body.
Yeah, it's really unique looking. So when they first hatch in the spring, they're really small, kind of like the tip of a pencil, and people don't really notice them then. They kind of look like a small black tick. But as they start to grow, and they grow pretty fast in the spring, they get bigger and bigger and more unusual looking. So they have the black bodies, bright iridescent white spots, and then once they go into their last stage, right before they turn into an adult, they turn bright red. And again, these are quite a bit larger at this point, maybe like the size of a pencil eraser or so, and they hop. Man, they are good jumpers. And so then people really start to notice them. And then finally, once they're ready to go into their adult stage, and in Pennsylvania, that's about late July is when we start seeing that. Then they get those big, beautiful wings. They're very colored. Again, they're really strong jumpers, but now they can also kind of fly and glide around.
Ew.
And they're also not afraid of humans. So they don't bite or they don't sting, but they're very annoying, and they can kind of crawl on you, fly at you. They like tall objects. So if you happen to be the tallest object around, they will definitely seek you out.
Well, tell us a little bit about why we need to keep this bug from invading our area.
Yeah, absolutely. So spotted lanternfly is an insect. Some people mistake it as a moth, but it's actually an insect in the plant hopper family, which means it's related to things like aphids or even stink bugs. And what it does is it has this like piercing, sucking mouth part. Kind of think like a mosquito, only for plants. So what it's doing is putting that mouth part into all sorts of different plants, over 70 different plant species, and sucking out that plant sap and kind of sucking that plant dry and depleting its nutrients and its resources that it has to survive. And that's a huge problem, especially when we look again at that host range. So I said over 70 different species. So that includes, plants that we really value, including agricultural crops. So things like grapes are a huge one that they're impacting, including also tree fruit, hops, cucumbers even. And then, of course, plants in our backyard and plants that we care about for, timber production and other things. So things like maples and willows and walnuts, oak trees, and all sorts of other species. So we really see that this insect is impacting the plant health across, kind of across the gamut, across the board here with the species that we, want to keep in Pennsylvania.
So you definitely are telling us there's no predators for this bug then, probably.
Well, there's not no predators, so that's the interesting thing is we are starting to see some birds and spiders, praying mantises, sort of what we call generalist predators attack spotted lanternfly. So that's very exciting for us to see that, and hopefully we can kind of see that increase as lanternfly spends, more time here. But definitely when it came, it lost its predators that, focus solely on feeding on it. And that means it kind of frees it up and allows it to, grow to these crazy high populations. And it doesn't have anything that's really going to reduce the population here yet.
Okay.
So that's why we're actually exploring some of those options to see if, maybe we can introduce something down the road here. Of course, we have to go through lots of safety precautions, but introduce another insect that might help reduce those populations of lanternfly.
Are you, as a person, it's a associate for the extension of Penn State, as a teacher, or are you more of a student when it comes to this?
Well, my position is in extension, and so what that means is that I'm responsible for basically talking to people about, what they're dealing with, or trying to educate them so that they're prepared to deal with this.
Okay.
So again, I focus exclusively on spotted lanternfly and spend a lot of time talking to the general public, to gardeners, to grape growers, and folks that are trying to manage this insect.
That's what got my attention, the release that you sent out, teaching us as the people in Lycoming County and surrounding counties where we're not yet in a quarantine stage worried about the lanternfly, teaching us how to make sure we can get rid of these egg masses, which is an interesting process in itself.
Yeah, so, if you go down to most areas in southeastern Pennsylvania and mention the word spotted lanternfly, you'll probably hear like a ugh or a moan or a groan of some sort. Mm-hmm. Most people in the southeastern part of Pennsylvania where we have, the existing quarantine, kind of where it all started, they are all too familiar with spotted lanternfly. And so their base education level, everybody kind of knows that it's a bad insect and they need to, keep an eye out for it and just destroy it when they can. Areas that kind of aren't in that area and are just starting to hear about it, often, their first response is, wow, what a beautiful insect.
Yeah.
And so, that's an okay first response, but we all also want to make sure that we have those education materials out there that say, okay, it's beautiful, but it doesn't belong here. And we need to make sure that we, alert authorities if we see it and, again, destroy it where we can.
So it's that important that if we see an egg mass on our car or on our patio furniture, you want us to give a call to the Penn State Extension.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a hotline, a call center that we have that's ready to take calls and report spotted lanternfly sightings, and we have our website that's all set up to report a sighting online too. And those sightings, if they're outside of the quarantine zone, like Lycoming County, they go directly to the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture, and then they send folks out to go investigate that sighting so that we can know, is it truly a spotted lanternfly, and if it is, let's make sure that we understand where that exists and destroy it before it can establish in Lycoming County.
Is that the best idea, to call an expert, or should we be able to destroy these egg masses ourselves?
Yeah, so they're actually really easy to destroy yourself. Even, all the life stages are fairly easy. So the bottom of the shoe works great. The egg masses are a little bit trickier, and some people might get a little grossed out by this, but it's sort of like you're popping bubble wrap, right? So on that kind of splash of mud that you might see, and there's loads of images on our website, and if you just go to your search engine and type in spotted lanternfly, you'll find all sorts of examples. And so basically there's about 30 to 50 eggs under each sort of splash of mud, each egg mass. And you want to make sure you squish all of those and destroy them all. So one thing you can do is just smash them really evenly and kind of grind them up. And as if you're popping bubble wrap, you want to, kind of see that pop out of the egg mass. Uh-huh. Or you can kind of scrape that down into some sort of baggie or container and submerge that in rubbing alcohol or hand sanitizer, and that will also kill the egg mass.
Wow. Should we burn it or throw it away? What's the wrong way to do it? Like, what should we make sure we do?
Well, to make sure you do, because you're in Lycoming County, you're not in the quarantine zone, the best thing that you can do is at least take a picture, and if you can keep the specimen, like in your freezer, if you want to like scrape the egg mass, pop it in a bag and put it in your freezer, so that when you report that and then authorities come to confirm that, you can have that example ready there to show them. And even show them where you found it. That's the most helpful thing that we can do to make sure, that it's not in Lycoming County, and if it is, it stays out and we can keep it out for as long as possible.
I'm surprised that one of the quarantine counties is Blair County, so far west.
Yeah, yep. So that's been an interesting development. Is what we're seeing is that there's a lot of spread with spotted lanternfly on the rail lines. And so if you look at the rail line that kind of goes through central Pennsylvania and over across to Pittsburgh, we do see a rail line that goes through, kind of that Altoona area.
Yeah.
And so certainly we know that that's likely for spread. But the other thing is that, like I said, this insect is not afraid of humans. It'll lay its egg masses on all sorts of crazy things. I've seen egg masses laid on people's hats, of all things, outdoor light bulbs, again, grills, patio sets, that sort of thing. And so anybody who's going camping or maybe selling something on the internet or whatever it is, can potentially spread this insect. So I think the other thing to keep in mind is just that, we make sure that we inspect our materials before we leave, especially outside of the quarantine zone.
Is Pennsylvania the only state affected, or do other states deal with this, like more south of us?
Yeah, so we're seeing spread, again, it started in Pennsylvania, but we're seeing spread beyond that. And so we now have it established in 9 states. So that's New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, and Ohio. So we're seeing that kind of continued spread. And we've even seen detections, not populations, but detections of this spotted lanternfly in Oregon and California. So all the way across the other coast.
Wow.
So, again, we know that it can hitchhike, and we want to make sure that it doesn't as much as possible.
Well, certainly we have 26 counties right now in Pennsylvania suffering with this invasive species, and we want to make sure that we keep our eye on it. What's the website that we can find information about the spotted lanternfly thanks to the Penn State Extension?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's extension.psu.edu/spotted-lanternfly. And also, again, if you just type in spotted lanternfly in your favorite, search engine, then you'll find that be kind of the first thing that pops up.
Do you have any projections about the economic impact that a spotted lanternfly unchallenged would happen to some of these states or our communities? Yeah,
so we have done, it's hard to estimate exactly what spotted lanternfly is doing, but we have an economist who's worked on this and try to answer exactly that question. And the estimate, if spotted lanternfly is not contained within Pennsylvania, we think it will, be an economic drain of at least $324 million each year.
Wow.
So, yeah, this thing, again, it affects, timber industry, small businesses, large businesses, grape industry, tree fruit. So a lot of things that we grow here and take pride in Pennsylvania could be at risk, which is why, we're trying to take this so seriously, reduce that spread as much as possible. And in the meantime, we're carrying out loads of research to try to understand, how we can basically control this bug in a long-term and sustainable way.
It seems as if when you sort of get on it and look at the facts and start working with the smart people in science like yourself and others that you probably work with, that's when you start getting answers. We probably have a worry, but you're on it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have come, I've been in this position for about 3 years now, and we have come so far in those 3 years in terms of just understanding this insect. And I can tell you it's a very strange insect. It keeps surprising us along the way. But we definitely are starting to come up with some new solutions and some ways that we think we can control it, across a larger scale. We still need time. We still have a lot more work to do, but hopefully, citizens who are listening to this, people who are being on the lookout, can help buy us that time that we need.
Sounds like the kind of industries like lumber and people who are out in our areas in the different forestry positions, they would be the people that should have the knowledge. Is there like a training course or something people can learn, or send maybe employees out? Hey, get knowledge on the spotted lanternfly so we can get rid of it.
Yeah, that's a great question. So any business or any organization that's operating within the quarantine zone has to have a spotted lanternfly permit, which means that you take a training, you know how to identify it, you know the risks of spotted lanternfly and what to do if you find them. And then, of course, you're always inspecting your vehicles and inspecting your area before you move so you're not spreading it. So we have a lot of the folks that work in the timber industry that are very, very aware of this pest and are doing everything that they can to make sure that they're not spreading it. And so certainly we give trainings all the time to these organizations and state agencies just to make sure that, especially the folks that are working outside in these environments that, could potentially spread a spotted lanternfly, are very, very aware of it.
How closely do you work with the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture? I'm sure very closely.
Oh, very closely. Yep. So we work with PDA, and then also the USDA is very involved with this in Pennsylvania. And so, Penn State kind of provides this role of extension, making sure that we're educating the public and doing that research at the same time. And meantime, the PDA is responsible for trying to keep that contained within the state of Pennsylvania and regulate it, so have permitting things in place to make sure that people aren't spreading it. And then, of course, both agencies, the USDA and PDA, are helping to control it on the ground. So they've got boots on the ground that are helping to reduce populations and treat areas where we do have infestations.
Well, we're looking for eggs this winter, and we won't see the quote-unquote pretty bugs until later in the summer. But we're certainly going to keep our eyes out for these egg masses. One more time with that hotline. If we see, and give me a little quick description and the hotline on how people here in Lycoming County, if they see these egg masses, what they can do.
Yeah, so if you see spotted lanternfly, help us, stop it in its tracks, and you can report a sighting online using our reporting tool at our Penn State Spotted Lanternfly Extension website, or you can call our hotline at 1-888-422-3359.
Well, Heather Leach, it's been really informing. Thank you so much for telling us about the spotted lanternfly. You're the Extension Associate in the Department of Etymology at Penn State University. Thanks for your expertise, and good luck fighting this fly.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
InTouch is locally produced in our studios at 1685 4 Mile Drive in Williamsport. To get in touch with us regarding questions, comments, or topic ideas, call weekdays between 8 and 5, 570-323-8200. You can also write to us at 1685 4 Mile Drive, Williamsport, PA, 17701, attention Freddi Hammer, or email me at fhammer@backyardbroadcasting.com. For archive programs of our InTouch series, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, Backyard Broadcasting. Each current weekly program is featured on the Backyard Broadcasting websites. Thanks for listening to InTouch, a production of Backyard Broadcasting.